Se ve que se están divirtiendo, que están conociendo gente y es lo principal, pero bueno, también tenemos una agenda pesada el día de hoy y por supuesto tenemos unas grandes personalidades como el señor John Kohler, que es un honor tener aquí. John, thanks for being here. John ha sido mentor para los emprendedores sociales en beneficio social del Acelerador Global. Perdón. Sirve como director de Impacto de Capital Centro de Santa Clara para la Ciencia de la Universidad de Santa Clara, Tecnología y Sociedad. Además, es uno de los fundadores de TONIC, es una red de sindicación de inversionistas de alto impacto, que ya ellos, como lo platicaron, Lisa y Charlie Clisner lo fundaron. Aparte, es un gran aliado del FLI, un gran personaje que ha hecho que la inversión de impacto en muchos lugares del mundo se desarrolle y es un honor tenerte aquí. John, thanks for being here.
Muchas gracias. Rodrigo. Buenos días. Y hola a todos. Por favor, mañana la presentación es en español, pero mi discurso en inglés también. Okay, so innovation. We think of innovation maybe very simply defined as a new way to solve an old problem. But innovation is not confined to technology. It can include innovation in business models. It can include innovation in distribution. It can include innovation in user interface, simplicity. And if you think about innovation, the best innovations are those that go away. I don't know how many of you own Apple products, but they don't come with a user manual anymore, right? How many times have we bought difficult technology products with huge user manuals and struggled to find what can we use in that? I think one of the axioms of true innovation is simplicity, and it is a way of making the product go away, making it so intuitive that it works. But innovation can be applied to some of the more difficult and persistent problems of poverty, and that's why we are here in this room. I'm particularly excited about being here at the Foro again, especially since this last year, most of my work was in Latin America, testing some innovation out. And today I will speak about not only some technology innovation and what we do at Santa Clara, but I'll also speak about some financial innovation. As Rodrigo said, I am not only an impact investor through Tonic, but I run the impact investing program at Santa Clara University. And Santa Clara is one of a Jesuit network university, and the Center for Science, Technology, and Society, which is where I spend my time, is concentrating on how do we innovate, how do we support social enterprise, and using technology to hopefully improve the lives of those in underserved communities around the world. And at the university, the mission of the university is to create a more humane, just, and sustainable world. How do we apply innovation to that? In addition to asking the question, what is innovation? Is it simplicity? Is it solving an old problem in a new way? We ought to look at what is the process of innovation. And are there examples we can point to for innovation or innovative products, especially for frontier economies and underserved communities? So when we approach it at Santa Clara, we began looking at how do we have frugal innovation from an engineering standpoint, and in fact incubated that at the center, but later very quickly moved it to the School of Engineering. So our Frugal Innovation Lab, although part of our effort to support social enterprise, empresas, is in fact at the School of Engineering. And we do a number of things there, one of which is to look at what is the process of innovation. So here is our process, and it involves empathy, and I'm going to come back to that word empathy in a moment, but it also involves definition after the empathy. It involves ideating, meaning creating the idea, recursively going with the idea, prototyping, and testing. What's missing here? What do we have to add to this process? Meaning. Okay. So that could be part of the empathize. How about repeating? Right? So we empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test, repeat. And I think you'll see that innovation is very much a very fast cycle. In fact, Steve Blank talks about, in Silicon Valley, talks about the lean corporation, the lean startup. And what he is speaking about is a customer-centric, empathetic approach to innovation that then is repeated rapidly. And you keep testing it in the marketplace until you find that simplicity, find that almost pervasive adoption to a new innovation. There's another Timothy Prestero, has I guess Design to Market is the name of his firm, but has an approach that I thought was very nice, and he talks about empathy as well. Empathy, you can say, is meaning or localization or truly coming into touch with the people who are going to be your beneficiaries. And perhaps that's how we establish meaning. Ross Baird yesterday spoke about needs versus demand. Was anybody at that presentation? Yeah, a few of you. Well, his point was very well taken. His point was we can't invent for what we perceive as a need. That's a very engineering approach. And in fact, if you look at Timothy's design process here, the invention approach is very much an engineering approach, right? You specify the technology, right? We're going to write down all of the specifications, and then you develop the product, and now you go looking around to find the people who need it, right? Whereas if you find a demand, right? People are demanding something they know they want. They might need something, but they don't know that they need it. So when you find demand, when you get in touch with the local constituency, the local beneficiaries, then you can in fact start with the user context and the user demand, and then move to inventing the product or innovating beyond that. So these are the ways that that Timothy, anyway, was suggesting that we design our way with an empathetic approach. So here is a slide done by Paul Freeman. You can find this on the mind mapping website. But he did it. Have you guys done graphical recording before? This is when we all gather in a room. So I spent 20 years in corporations, and we loved doing this. We would go off-site. We would free ourselves from telephones and email, and we would think, right? We're going to come up with a new idea. We're going to come up with an innovation. And we would graphically record all of the words that we could think of after many cups of coffee. And, so there's modify or combine, and there's thoughts, and there's new, and there's investigate, and there's, revolutionary. But this is very much an engineering approach as well. So it's like, bang, what is that huge sudden insight that will create a disruptive technology that takes the world over? It's hard to do. In fact, there's a saying that I like: if it's so easy, it would have been done by now, right? Anywhere in the world. Okay, so let's take a little exploration. For you who are running or starting a social enterprise, the key is that you're not in a vacuum. You don't have to come up with some huge breakthrough. Innovation, in my experience, is usually built on many other technologies becoming, or many other methods even, becoming available. I was once a founding executive at Netscape, which was the original browser company. But it wasn't the only browser that was in the market. And in fact, that graphical browser was built on the shoulders of an intranet, ARPANET, and built on the shoulders of graphical user interface, and built on the shoulders of character mode retrieval systems like Fetch, which came out of Dartmouth, And from that, we were able to build a new innovation, which is the modern day graphical browser for the internet. So it's not in a vacuum, and more importantly, you don't have to build your companies around innovations in a vacuum either. We're here to help support the growth of your companies, and many people in this room are part of the capacity development support for social enterprises. When I think of supporting social enterprise as an investor, I would rather invest in an entrepreneur with a good idea than a good entrepreneur, an exciting entrepreneur with a good idea, than somebody who's not such a good entrepreneur with a great idea. In other words, it's the people, it's the entrepreneur. You can have the best innovation in the world, but really it's the entrepreneur that is the #1 criteria that I have as an investor. But what is an entrepreneur? In Latin, it's from the Latin root, it means to seize with both hands. Entrepreneur. Well, so what is it that we're seizing? At the Frugal Innovation Lab, we think that these are the elements that innovation needs to be fed by. So you'll see on the upper right here, it's human-centric. It uses the word simple that I mentioned before. It's local, meaning that you have empathy, right? You have a localization. Affordable, sustainable, which is what green means. Lightweight, rugged, adaptable. These are sort of the things that we think are core competencies required to innovate in any product. We just happen to be a field or a sector, all of us in this room, which are looking at products and services for underserved communities and at very affordable base of pyramid price points. Okay, sorry for the big zoom. If this were a bigger screen, I once did this in a planetarium and they had this huge curved screen, and man, you know, by the end of it, everybody was like wandering around all dizzy, but fortunately these screens are a little smaller. So here's some examples. So Saulo Uno is in Mexico. They are doing cataract surgery in a very rapid way, a very low-cost way, trying to meet that underserved marketplace. But even they, as a surgical bay, even they needed some innovation. And the innovation that they were looking for that we helped them with at Santa Clara is how do they meet their market? How do they go qualify numbers and numbers and numbers of people to come in without throwing doctors at the problem? And so we helped them innovate with some software, a device that was actually made at the MIT lab, which is a way of looking in and understanding if a person, very inexpensively, if a person had cataracts. And then also grading the size of the cataracts to say, in very simple form, green, yellow, red, whether or not, you know, if it was green, they didn't have cataract, or it was so small it was not needed to be to diagnose. If it was yellow, they sent the file over the cell phone. We sent the file over the cell phone to the doctors, and if it was red, it was sent with an urgency, saying this person is about to go blind, right? So this is a way of, in a very low-cost way, sending, you know, marginally trained technicians to go out and be able to run these diagnostics, because it's dead simple to do the diagnosis out in the field, and consequently drive more patients to where the doctors are needed the most, which is to do the surgery. Another example, whoops, sorry, wrong button. Here we go. Now I'm really making you dizzy. Another example is a project that Hewlett-Packard funded, which is a lab on a chip. And I think that these are going to be innovations in medical science, both for this, in this case, for clean water, finding pathogens, could be E. coli or could be heavy metals. In this case, the first instantiation is looking for arsenic on the border of India and Bangladesh. And so there's some real difficulty, because arsenic is a naturally occurring but very poisonous component of the earth, and they've got to find it in the water there. So this is a project that very low cost way of measuring water quality, and later can be adapted to pathogens with just different paper-based litmus tests. One of the things that we find in innovation and we concentrate on at the Frugal Innovation Lab is also a platform. And in this case, we're exposing a mobile platform, but there are plenty of platforms. And these platforms are very important because you can innovate on top of them. The same way that the original graphical browser for the internet was built on top of character mode search as well as the internet. So, you know, these are platforms that allow us to not only send messages or have convenience of speaking, but they're platforms that allow us to receive telemetry. Telemetry is, for example, a situation where you can capture information with your cell phone in a very simple way and then transmit that. So for crop management or for disease identification in water, etc. There are ways that you can get information back and help that intervention in a very low-cost way. So let's speak about you know, how we help. At GSBI, the Global Social Benefit Accelerator, we have a team of mentors, and we are working very hard to create stronger business models and what we call investment readiness. And we also are, you know, concentrating on ways that we can have some financial inclusion, and this would be with financial innovation, and I'm going to speak about that in a moment. We have partners such as Cisco and Hewlett-Packard, as I mentioned before, and also some foundations, and we have something we created called the demand dividend. One of the problems that we see is that bringing innovation to markets is often done in a way that isn't supportable from a financing standpoint. So one aspect that we invented was something called a demand dividend. And it was really from an observation that the more, and this is a very complex side, but the more that organizations or countries spend on their people, the more that they're able to attract over on the right-hand side loans and external financing, and it's pretty important. Another aspect of this is just sort of the overall investor environment. And one of the observations that we made is that the investor environment is very difficult. If you look down on the bottom here, you can see the gray is Latin America and South America in general. Of course, these are averaged figures. And the red is, you know, the OECD high income. This is the Organization of Economic States, but these are the high income states, part of the OECD. And especially down, oops, sorry about that. Oh, I'm losing it. Let me go back. There we go. So especially down here in resolving insolvency and protecting investors, there's a pretty big gap between what investors are used to and what they're having to encounter in some of these frontier economies. So solving some of this gap is a big problem. If you leave an equity investment in place in some of these areas, your money really runs into a fair amount of risk. So solving that problem, in other words, equity is to venture capital as X is to impact capital, has been one of the things that we've been trying to innovate financially at Santa Clara. So I've got my little tugboat here, and it's called the demand dividend, and I'm going to give you a quick couple of examples because I'm running out of time. But there is a microloan facility that is built around the idea of a variable payment option that is primarily a debt option, but it is an asset-based, as I said in that leaf earlier, an asset-based credit rather than it's a cash flow-based credit rather than an asset-based credit. And so it opens up financial inclusion and the ability to afford investments into microenterprise. And the duration of those investments is pretty short. We're working with BAC, which is a local bank in Central America, in this case in Nicaragua, with Agora Partnerships and Include, to put this, what's called a variable payment obligation trust together. We're very excited about it because it brings financial inclusion to microenterprise, especially those led by women, where no financing has been in existence yet. Another example is what I spoke about at Lisa Kleisner's session yesterday. This is Maya Mountain Cacao. This was a demand dividend financing done by Elios. It was a syndication, and it goes into helping support farmers and production of cacao between Belize and Guatemala, and very successful as an example so far. Finally, we have a network, as I said, of Jesuit universities. What we're trying to do is not just keep our work confined to Silicon Valley, but to actually extend it through this Jesuit network. And there are many universities that we're working with around the world today to try to extend some of our intervention. So with that, I'll say gracias, obrigado. It is a difficult, but difficult job to kind of come think of these innovations and try to make some breakthroughs. But I think it also takes persistence. And with that, I'll turn the mic over, and with my gratitude.
Thank you so much, John. It's always a pleasure to have you with us.